time for analysis, and it worked out really well last semester. And I told you that'll be participation points, and we'll count that as 3 hours worth of class, so then we can end the class a week earlier or whatever we need to do. So, I think those 3 main things were our participation. Let me list. Corbin came in, yes. And Jace came in, yes. Did Nathaniel come in? No. All right. So we try to take a roll every once in a while. I'm going to check on. There'll also be a couple random little in-class things that we do that instead of maybe just giving you points for being here, I'll have you submit something or show that you did the activity. And that's one thing that I hope we get to today. So that's, any questions on grades? Or I did report midterm grades. Yeah. No, it was before today. Okay. And I went and fixed that today, so that should be back. I think you can still drop if you don't like the grade you're getting. I don't know. Okay, so let me come back and unmute this so we can see it. My schedule real quick. So we're on week 8, and I have to apologize. I looked at the book again, and he renumbered some of his chapters. So I really had originally wrote down chapter 10, but it's really chapter 9. If I'm sure that everyone's read the chapter already, so I'm going to read chapter 10 anyways. But chapter 9 is really the one we're focusing on this week. So I have slated a test for next week. So we'll get, as we get closer to that, once again, I don't think, we didn't have a practical for test 1, did we? No. So once again, I don't have a practical for test 2. I'll just open it at the testing center and you can just go stop by there sometime next week and take it. So that's kind of the plan for that. Any other questions on the logistics of the course? Problems? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the grades and stuff. And on assignment 6, that's the thing where it's the SCAPI and something you said that you take it from the website, right?
Yes, so send me an email if I haven't updated your grade, because I thought I went and looked at the website for everybody.
Yeah, mine's lower than I expected.
If I didn't see the website, then just send me an email saying, go look at the website. Yeah.
What exactly is the test going to cover? So chapter 9 and SCAPI?
SCAPI, chapter 9 and chapter 5.
Okay.
So chapter 5 was, yeah. And
That's just going to come from the SCAPI slide.
yes, SCAPI slides, yep. There's not a ton on SCAPI. Yeah. That's it. Okay, so today then, I wanted to talk about, and you're working on an assignment, right? What was it? The Suricata? Or Security Onion, I guess it was?
Yeah.
Security Onion. Questions or problems on that?
Question, did anybody else's Security Onion install seem extremely slow and laggy? Is that just like...
Was that just during the installation?
Just using it in general. Like I double click and it like, I can see it refresh.
Oh, yeah.
Like the screen goes...
I was trying to install it earlier and I just kind of gave up after a second.
It took forever because you'd click on something and have to wait and it'd like, you hit next and it would like... Super slow.
Security Onion recommends 8 gigs of RAM.
Oh, okay. So I'll just rent that out. That's easy.
It's
Oh, okay.
I didn't know. I did notice that it said you could go in and change your video memory.
Download some more
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like they suggest 8 gigs, and I only have 4 on it, so I'll just increase the amount around.
Yeah, but how many of us have 8 gigs? Well, let's see when we run into that problem.
I have 8 gigs.
Well, 8 gigs free?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This thing's got 32 gigs.
It seems like as I was reading,
It doesn't anything over 2 gigs, it just crashes you.
installation, quick evaluation, I heard it was. That's the link that we went to, right?
There's the hardware requirement.
I don't think I had 8 gigs.
We have to redo it. I have to reboot it anyway.
Well, I mean, I didn't even start the install. I just didn't want to start it back up and give them more.
How many gigs is your machine?
I only had 2 gigs of RAM.
Say again?
I had 2 gigs. It worked fine.
Maybe my machine's just extremely crappy.
Maybe it's because you're running them back.
Could be because I'm running a battery.
Are you doing Hyper-V?
Yeah.
That also could be it.
Oh, Hyper-V?
Hyper-V suck.
I don't know.
No, it shouldn't be that much different.
So.
It should actually be faster technically.
Anyone else having any issues with Security Onion?
Tried to use it.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a couple of, and hopefully you can work on that. We might have a little bit of time today, and or continuing throughout the week if we need to work on some of these assignments. I don't have the next one up. I mean, there might be a link there that's active, but don't do it yet. There'll be one more assignment prior to the exam. Okay, so I wanted to talk about firewalls just for a minute. How many of you run something other than Windows Firewall?
IT4510 set up in the past with a firewall set up on that.
Okay, anyone else? Well, so just quickly, what's a firewall supposed to do?
We've had stuff. That's about.
Okay,
Prevents
If it does
connections.
get in, kill it.
okay. So it's a block stuff, and I think Security Onion, is it a firewall?
No.
No. Is there a difference between an intrusion detection system and a firewall?
Yes.
What?
Intrusion detection system won't necessarily stop it, will it?
Right.
It'll just alert you that there is a breach.
Right. So maybe if we would have installed an IPS, which is an intrusion prevention system, they try to mitigate things before they cause a problem. But I don't know that that's even the same as a firewall. A firewall tries to block malicious programs or traffic. Yeah.
So it's like the difference between an actual wall and just having a guy with binoculars.
Yeah. Right. That's a good analogy. So on the hacking side, what are our ways around? And I'll say for now, let's say a network firewall. Because we can have a firewall on our network and we have a firewall on our host. Most of you have used like Windows firewall, that resides on the host, right? It blocks unknown program, blocks hidden tier, whatever, or ransomware from running maybe sometimes. So let's take the assumption of a network firewall. What are our ways around a network firewall? Tunneling. How many of you have done tunneling?
Every day.
Since IT11.
Yeah, right. Has anyone done it for something other than connecting to your virtual machine?
RDP.
For what?
I use like a reverse SSH tunnel so I can access the machine on my local network. So I like SSH to a free pod that I had with AWS and I just connected the ports up.
So your machine at home is always connected to it or something?
Yeah, just connect to it in the reverse like tunnel.
Oh, cool. Cool. So the thing about tunneling is, if I were to, here's my host, and this host is behind some firewall. And firewalls, we typically allow certain traffic through. Like, we might allow, let's see, outbound traffic, right? I might allow stuff like port 22 or SSH. Or I might allow my users inside to use the web so they can access port 80. But what if I want to block them from using, I don't know, file sharing or BitTorrent or some other applications on a different port? So the way around that users get around or could get around it is through the use of tunneling, where all that tunneling is where we take And SSH tunneling is probably the easiest one to, I think it's very easy to use. There's other ways of tunneling, but from the outside, the security administrator, all they're going to see is SSH traffic, which is encrypted. So tunneling is this idea of taking another protocol and encapsulating it inside the SSH packet. So this red line is my tunneled protocol, and all that they're seeing on the outside is SSH, and so I'm bypassing, or I'm getting through the firewall. So let's do an example. So if we open up a terminal, let's take, and I'm going to take traffic, and I'll do it, I don't know, I don't really have an offsite machine I can SSH to, but I'll tunnel like submit.cs.dixie.edu, port 80, I'll tunnel it over SSH back to my local machine. And this could be one way, and this is the way we get around the firewall from off campus to access our virtual machines. So we're going to SSH to whatever, ssh.cs.dixie.edu, and then to tunnel in Linux or on a Mac, you do -L at the end, and then we say, well, -L, I don't remember what the actual definition in the man page says, but it basically sets up a tunnel. So I need to put where, and I want it to go to submit.cs.dixie.edu, port 80. So the tricky things here are, where am I getting these numbers? Well, the right-hand side is pretty easy. That's the host I want to connect to, and I want to connect to port 80 on that remote machine, the standard web port. Versus the left-hand side.
That's your local port.
Yeah, so basically you just make up the number on the left-hand side. It can be any number between, within the certain range that ports are allowed, 0 and 65,535. So I chose a random unused port number that I hope. And then I'm logged into the SSH machine, or basically I created this connection to SSH. And maybe another way of drawing it is like this, as I create the SSH connection here, and then on the other end, it goes and grabs that traffic for me, and then just sends it through this SSH connection.
So like if you went to localhost
Yeah.
port 8888, it would just take you to submit.dixie.edu.
Localhost 888. Yes. I didn't really like how it did that, but let me try, because actually what it did, the way we have submit set up, we have it set up so that if they access it on HTTP, it automatically redirects them to the HTTPS site. So in fact, right now, it's not over the tunnel anymore. So let me try
What ports?
this one.
443?
Yeah, I could tunnel 443. Let's do, I think it's cit.dixie.edu, is that the?
Yeah, that one doesn't do HTTPS.
So localhost 8888, and now it's connecting me to this cit.dixie.edu webpage.
That's the computer club, that's not.
Yeah, well, it's the CIT webpage. This is the default. If you guys have studied Apache, this is the default virtual host. If my host header doesn't match anything else, this is the page that it'll show.
Where did they put that in the default?
I have no idea. I don't even know what this club is. Well, okay, maybe I do. But. What if could I do it to like Google?
Try to.
Okay, we'll try. Unless they redirect me to HTTPS. So localhost 888. That's not refreshing. Oh, well, it tried to take me to Google, but something still messed up with the host header. But it still worked. I still was tunneling over the SSH connection and made my request. If we were to Wireshark this, what would we see? Nothing, because it's all, we would see SSH traffic. We would never see that HTTP traffic.
You wouldn't be able to see what's in the SSH traffic, right? Because it's encrypted?
Correct. Yep. Okay, so Any other ideas what I could use as a tunneling protocol? What else could I tunnel over besides SSH?
Can you do it over like FTP?
You guys do a Google search, see what other common tunnel protocols are. And there's one that's really common that all network administrators pretty much allow in or out, or else their network won't work.
I think the VPN.
Common tunneling protocols.
There's IP.
Telnet.
Okay, Telnet. How about DNS? We know what DNS is we can do lookups for our host names to IP address. You can tunnel over DNS. Anyway, so and you can tunnel over other protocols. You can tunnel stuff over HTTPS. Most network administrators are going to have that allowed outbound so that their users can access secure websites. Although HTTPS is a little harder because on the tunnel that I'm showing you, I have to control this endpoint or at least be able to get to it. If you're tunneling over HTTPS, you'd have to have some HTTPS server that you had control over that was set up correctly to tunnel. Have any of you used programs like Tunnel Bear, or have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a VPN.
Yeah, it's like, it's the same idea though. Isn't a VPN just a tunnel,
Yeah.
pretty much?
Oh, you got Hamachi.
Okay.
There's you can make a virtual tunnel between computers with that. If you don't want to port for it.
Yeah. Yep, I used Hamachi a long time ago. But just as an example,
Yeah.
and I guess VPN is slightly different than a tunnel, but I remember maybe 10 or 15 years ago, you guys were all wee little children. I remember I wanted to watch this show that was only broadcast in the UK or something.
Oh.
And so I created a tunnel to an open VPN over on the UK continent, whatever, and I was able to watch my show because it made my machine look and think and act as if it were in the UK. So yeah, I was able to watch my show.
So is it like, that's not the same thing as using a VPN?
It's similar idea because
But you're like manually tunneling in instead of having a VPN do it for you?
Well, I think
Is
it's
that what you're saying?
well, no, it was a VPN pretty much.
It was, okay.
Yeah, but what is a VPN? Let's define that since we keep talking about it. Virtual private network. So, but it functions the same way because basically you have an endpoint here where you connect to the endpoint, you secure everything, and then this intermediary goes out and makes requests for you. Is that fair enough to say? Okay, what's the problem with all these? Because you might say, oh, there's someone on the internet that offers an open VPN or an open tunnel for me to connect to. Do you want to connect to it?
You gotta be really careful.
If you go through any intermediary,
They have full access.
they own your traffic.
Yeah, you don't know what they're gonna do with your traffic.
There's reasons why you never use free VPNs and you have to research all your provider before you buy it.
Right.
Because a free VPN is not free.
Yeah, I agree.
They sell all your data.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one, I had never done this before until today, and I thought it was very interesting. So other ways around a firewall, well, maybe not all firewalls, but some firewalls might be configured to, or look at the IP address that you're going to and block the IP address based on what you type in the URL. But we can get around this. So, for example, if I go to this URL, let's see what we see. That was the ACM page again, but I'm not going over the tunnel now. I'm going over to 144.38.192.200. Okay, so let's say I didn't want users to get to this IP address anymore. I'll blacklist this IP address. Now it doesn't work with every single type of firewall there, but the idea is if you convert this address to binary, like ones and zeros, and then you take that number and convert it back, or you take that long stream of binary digits and convert it back to a number, you can still access the website. Let's try it. So see if you can follow along with what I'm doing. On this slide, I'm going to open up this binary converter. And this one is just a simple converter, and we could do this manually, but we don't want to take it too long. So 144.38, 192.200, we're going to convert that to binary. So if you take the networking class, you'll figure out how to do that. So I have this long stream of digits, binary digits. And I want to take this as a single number and convert it back, not to an IP address, not to dotted decimal, just to a number. So I'm going to go to this. Why does DNS take so long? Oh, I thought we fixed it. So I'm going to enter this, this will be binary to decimal. I'll enter the binary. I'm going to get rid of the dots here so it doesn't throw off anything. And convert. So I have this long number, like 2 million or 2, whatever that is, right? 24 million, something. I don't know. So what I thought was interesting is I could take that number and put it up here in my URL, and it went to the web page.
Whoa, what?
I know.
What?
How did that work? So HTTP, and I pasted in this big long number, and I hit enter, and it took me to that web page.
That's crazy.
So I thought it was interesting. So, and once again, I don't think that will work for every type of firewall. I didn't research which ones it would work with, but that is a way around perhaps some firewall limitations. Anyway, interesting. Okay.
Put HTTP
I did. I put HTTP at the top.
/random numbers, I'll just get some random IP.
Oh, I didn't try that.
It has to be the same one. Upstairs.
I didn't try that.
How many digits is there?
Okay. This is the one that I want all of us to do together. Open up your Linux virtual machine. We're going to play with honeypots. Has anyone used a honeypot before?
Doesn't matter which one.
I did not test it on my Kali machine. I only tested it on my Ubuntu machine.
Will security onion work? I've got that one pulled up right now.
I don't know. I didn't test it on that, but definitely I try
I'll
it.
try it.
How about this one? Oh, I'll do it on one maybe I don't have it installed. I'm gonna try this machine. Let's see what this looks like. Is this a desktop display? Is that why I don't use it? Oh. Okay, so while this is booting up, a honeypot. And you'll read about it in your chapter. On our network, we are constantly getting hammered, or I'm sorry, traffic that we do allow through the firewall. So here is, ssh.cs.dixie.edu. And we have a rule that allows traffic going to port 22 on this machine to come through the firewall. And I can actually show you that rule in a second. But, oh yeah, so this machine is consistently being hammered by brute force password attacks from the internet. Because we don't have any way of restricting, well, I mean, there is ways of restricting what IPs, but we don't know what IPs our students are going to log in from, so we can't really blacklist certain IPs. Anyway, there might be, for research purposes, you might want to figure out who your attackers are and what they're doing. And for that purpose, you can use what's called a honeypot. Now, a honeypot is a system that looks and acts and feels as if it were a real system, but it's not. And you kind of draw the attacker to this machine, and they can spin their wheels on that machine without compromising any real machine on your network. So these are popular to throw in a network.
Could you use like a Docker image
Yes.
for that?
That's
Are
what I'm-
Docker images secure enough?
I think depending on if you lock it down, I'd be hesitant to just spin up
Like any?
any Docker image, because they're in your network with the Docker image if they get to it. Okay. That's kind of, okay, so this is what we need to do. We're gonna install this Cowrie program. Yeah.
What was the login credentials for that again?
Rubio.
You did Rubio, you did it for Rubio.
Oh yeah, Rubio and blank password.
Should cracker the password for it already.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm actually on.
Did that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't remember any passwords on there. Except mine. Did you get in?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the instructions pretty much. So do the sudo apt install docker.io. Oops. This is really supposed to be like, I don't know why it didn't show up right. Just do that first command and I'll edit the second command. So that was sudo apt install docker.io. Okay. So, some of you have used Docker, used it a little bit in my, I'm gonna refresh this, so if I used it a little bit in IT4510. So after you do install Docker.io, add your user to the Docker group. Something like sudo add user Joe, or whatever your username is, Docker. After you add yourself to the Docker user and group, log out, log back in. And then do that last command. So Docker, for those of you that haven't done it, it's like a virtual machine, but it is very much more lightweight and easier. Oh yeah, whatever user you're logged
Like
in.
on the sudo add user.
Yes. So whatever user you're logged in as, use that, add that to the Docker group, whether it's Rubio or whoever. Anyone getting any weird errors?
No. Did you say something?
Weird error? Oh,
Is there a space between TCP and Cowrie?
One of them is the argument dash P, and the other one is dash
Is this supposed to be the space between TCP and Cowrie?
yes.
I have trust.
Sorry, there's a space right here. So, once again, Docker is a very, for lack of a better term and time, we'll just say it's kind of like a virtual machine when you do Docker. And we could have done all of our assignments, or most of them in Docker. But basically what it does is it has all the packages pre-installed on this virtual machine to run this honeypot.
Docker doesn't trust it on your machine.
Doesn't trust this image.
It
anything.
Docker.io does not have trust data for docker.io/calories/calorie.
I got permission.
Did you log out and log back in after you did add user?
No, okay, that's what it is.
Log out and log back in. So this says, basically, this is an SSH honeypot, where the attacker, after we get this up, we can do a port scan against this machine, and we should be able to see that. And I'm not running on port 22. If I was really setting this up to be a honeypot, SSH by default runs on port 22. So I could set this up to run on port 22, but I'm not going to. Just for testing purposes, we're going to run it at port 2222. And it's going to be a TCP port. And really, this is the name of the image that Docker is going to download for us. So I'm going to type that, and hopefully it'll, oops. If you log out and log back in, you shouldn't have to sudo docker.
I did log out and log back in, it still made me sudo.
Oh, well, if you already tried to run it once, then maybe it broke everything. So just do sudo. I loaded up the wrong one. Oh, come now.
Wait, so what is the command that we do?
This is my sorry.
How are we SSHing into it? Are we gonna?
Yeah.
Okay.
So see if you can, and I'm just let me load up this. I got the wrong one. All right. All right, so it was Docker run minus D minus P 2222, oops, TCP calorie. And hopefully you're at a terminal by the time you execute that command. We'll just do a couple things before we SSH into it. If you do a Docker PS, it will show you what containers are running. Should show you that calorie image. Well, it should show something there. If it doesn't show something there, that means it's not running. Okay, so it's running on port 2222. We want to SSH into it. Okay, so I'm going to say, sorry, this is so small. I don't know how to make this bigger, but remind me to zoom back out, or I'm going to forget when I'm done with this. So I want to, and it's, right now it's just running locally. We could set this up to run anywhere on our network that we want. We could set it to run with a public IP address, whatever, but it's just running on my local host 2222. So I'm going to say SSH localhost minus P2222. And I think that says try to SSH to this local machine at port 2222. Now I always get this nasty message because I turned my container off and turned it back on. So I'm just going to remove SSH node hosts.
I know. Me too.
Can you drag it down just a little bit?
Oh yes. So it should prompt you for a password, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the attacker. I'm sitting here spinning my wheels. We would maybe launch a Hydra attack against it, which we've done, right?
Oh.
So we launch Hydra against it. This is really exciting. Now, this is a research tool. We want to be able to see what the attacker is doing. So I want to, while they're, and you wouldn't probably be doing this real time, you go analyze this after the fact. But while they're logging in, I want to view the logs here that Calorie is reporting. So to get to a second screen, now I don't know if this is going to work on everybody's machine, but at least in VirtualBox, if I do an Alt right arrow, prompts me for, I'm at another TTY. The other one's still open. If I do Alt left arrow, it's still there. Can you guys get over to the new TTY?
Yeah.
So basically it's just a second login to the same virtual machine. So I did Alt right arrow, and I'm gonna log in again. And then type Docker logs and hit tab a few times, and whatever, you guys will probably have one entry. Let's see. I don't know. You won't have the same as mine, but I'm gonna guess mine's that one. Nope, it's not that one.
That's a lot.
Sharp Feynman. Maybe it is that one. Oh yeah, it was the first one. So I'm looking at these Docker logs, and you can see that I failed unauthorized login. It should also show the password that you try with.
Well, what? Mine just says argument not supported when I type in Docker logs.
No, we have to do Docker logs and then hit tab a few times, and then type in that weird word that it gives you.
Oh.
So let's log in can you see the passwords that you tried to put in? I'll try mine again. Joe, whatever, foobar, hello. So I come back over here, and I'm gonna go look at this again. You can see that he tried the password hello, I tried the password foobar, password, whatever. Oh, well, that was really exciting. So now, can actually get into the machine. And this is where it gets cool. So if let's say I did a Hydra attack. What username do we always want to try with? Root. So try it with root. So we do SSH root at localhost. Enter some password. I guessed it. Yes. I'm on the machine. Well, wait. What machine is that? What's server 04? Is that your VM? No, we're inside this little Docker container. We're inside of a separate VM. See what you can do in there. See if you can hack it. Right? So the bad guy logs in, they're in this honeypot, they're like, yes, I got root access. So after we've compromised the system, what's the next step that an attacker would try?
Installing
Rootkit, backdoor. Oh, do we have internet access in here?
Yes, you do.
wget.cit.dixie.edu/IT4510 syllabus.pdf.
I just pinged Google it.
Oh man, I just downloaded PDF. I can download stuff. So let's go back and look at our logs.
Feels like a full machine.
So we can go see here in my logs what they've been doing. They downloaded something from a URL. So now they're just spinning their wheels over there. Well, maybe. Can they do anything bad? Oh, maybe I can do nmap. Maybe, I don't know if it's installed. Oh, no. How about apt install nmap? Dang it. So, but they could, you could see them spinning their wheels here, and then you can go research and see what their mode of attack is. And
so if they ran a Hydra attack against us with the first password they tried come back as positive?
If they were trying it as a root?
Yeah.
Or, well, let's look at what other users could we try against. I mean, I'm gonna go look at Etsy password, right? Oh, Richard. Try to log in as Richard.
Richard, Texas.
Right? So I'm gonna go back
The
out.
word list would correct that instantly.
Well, like the SSH.
So Richard, whatever password. Yay, I cracked the Richard password. And now they try to elevate privileges. Oh, let's see if I can sudo. Oh, no. Sudo su root. Sudo su root. I don't know. We can see them just spinning their wheels. I don't know what actually works and what doesn't here because it's just a.
If you create a new user and make it a root user.
What? Will it work?
You can't even, like, I'm sure if you SSH is somewhere for you have to do something.
Add user Tom.
I just installed it.
Ooh. So it is not pretending to add a new user. Yeah.
Is there a way where what you can do, where you can make it so that allows any password, but it takes a certain amount of tries to log in. Because having it instantly log in would feel very suspicious to any attacker.
Right.
You could make it so they have to try 150 times before it lets them log in.
Well, that's true. I don't know. I haven't, there's probably ways to customize this cowrie package.
You probably could just set the password to password 12345 or whatever, like, as well. That probably would work better too.
I'm gonna fake it. Wow. I'd never tried this. See if I can actually. See, it's not working. It's very similar to when we add a user, but it's not. Yeah, I don't remember all that stuff. Country, favorite movie. What?
Oh yeah, it's a joke.
I wonder if it's just gonna.
Okay, starting over. Awesome. Control C. Anyway, so zoom way
I
out.
just love the okay starting over. At that moment, they realize.
They have an automated script that just runs through this. It might just.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just a script there in the background that's. I think I read it was built with Python.
I mean, if they have, if they're doing like an automated script to break into your
Oh,
system,
oh yeah.
it might just sit there and.
Get them in a loop. So we can always go back. We can see those logs, and I know the logs aren't very readable, but you can always take and send that to some log service, I guess, to parse it or whatever. So, we didn't, I guess we could always come back to our local machine, and if we have, that's this, what? Oh yeah, I logged out. Never mind. Was other exit. So I don't think I have nmap on this local. Anyway, you could nmap it and see if it's, but that would have them spin their wheels there. Before we, so really I already talked about that. Root, Richard. There's some other places we can see the logs. But I thought, what other types of honeypots are out there? GitHub's our favorite, one of our favorite places. So I showed you an SSH honeypot. So here are, for example, some MySQL or database honeypots. So they could spin their wheels, and I've never used any of these, but that might be interesting to play with. Web honeypots. I know I saw one down, so there's a Drupal one or a WordPress. There's a WordPress one where they could try to, no, oh there they are.
Honey Potter.
WordPress, yeah. And a low interaction honeypot that simulates an Android device. The one we were using was a high interaction honeypot. They had built in a lot of functionality. Some of the lower interaction ones, like SSH, they'll just give you a prompt and that's it or something. SCADA honeypots, botnets, anyway. Thought that was very interesting. So, go here. And then one other one, I came across this as well. Top 20 honeypots. And it talks about research and production honeypots, so you could use it in a research environment, you could use it in your real network. It's just kind of a trap. So I thought it was interesting. It breaks them down again. Once again, you have SSH. They spelled that one wrong. It's cowrie. HTTP honeypots, WordPress honeypots, database again, email. You have email honeypots where they're trying to send spam, that sort of thing. Internet of Things. I haven't used, I don't know, these might be fun, but I've never used any of them. So there's a lot of them out there, and they could have a useful place in your network. And I guess if you're a hacker, you gotta be aware that those exist out there. And don't waste your time on. How would we ever identify it as a honeypot? I think if you're running a script or a tool, it's probably not going to be able to identify it. If you were manually doing those things, you probably wouldn't be able to figure that out. Maybe not very quick, but anyway, so that's, I want to talk about honeypots today. Any questions? So did you get a honeypot up and running? Take a print screen. upload it to Canvas.
Do you want a print screen of the output, not the actual honeypot?
I don't care.
Okay, so if we just have like.
Honeypots, upload it, get some more participation points. You can do that anytime today.
Just the logs, or the honeypot?
That's fine, either one. Yep.
So when you try to do your logs on, I understood you did the Docker logs and then I tabbed, and it gave you like a long name, but what was I supposed to do it like that weird thing?
You just hit enter. Oh, you got a launch. Oh, you got the code. You didn't get like a name.
No, I have to read, I closed it, but that's what I was getting on.
I did the one where I logged in as root.
It's through the Docker logs, or Docker run.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So I can't SSH oh wait, you can't do it like that. Do SSH localhost space minus P. Okay, so you that's correct.
Yeah, I can install it.
Do you want like the log? Would that be alright to send?
Yes, that's fine.
So.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah, if you already turned your thing off, you can go find your log files. And let me show you how to do that. It's in that directory on my slide.
So like, Ali is the default user.
Oh, wait. It's just root any password.
How did you actually get into the system? How did you actually SSH? How did you actually get into the system, or did you just go Docker yourself?
After I did I didn't do, it's running on localhost, so I just opened up a second terminal and did SSH localhost. Any other problems?
I was wondering if that. I will have to.
Yeah, just choose one of those.
So after you download it,
I think I was gonna show this.
I really like Callie.
I've tried both as root and not as